Hi, everyone. Today I'm joined with the amazing Leslie Josel. Hi, Leslie. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I can't wait. I think we're going to have a great discussion.
Yes, me too. I'm very, very excited to have you on. Thank you so much for accepting the invite.
Oh, absolutely.
So why don't you introduce yourself first? Tell us a bit about yourself, your background, what you've done so far,
Sure.
and who you are.
So I always say that I am very old. I have been in the ADHD and executive functioning space for 19 years now, which is a little crazy if you think about it. So I'm an academic coach and parenting coach. So I'm an academic coach for students who have ADHD and learning disabilities, as well as a parenting coach. So I think what's really lovely is I come to the table sometimes with three hats on. I wear the student hat, I wear the professional hat, but I also wear the parent hat, because not only do I parent coach, I also am a parent of a child that has ADHD and executive dysfunction. But I started my company, Order Out of Chaos. I want to say back in 2004. And you have to remember back then, there were no podcasts, there were no resources. I don't even think the internet at that time was even as, it really wasn't a place that was as big and bright as it is now. So I had to really rely on my own instincts and resources to figure out ways to untangle my son's worlds, both at home and at school. And back then I did things you might consider revolutionary, maybe not so much now because we have so much more research and understanding of how the brain works. But what I realized for my son, and I think this is even important, is that what he didn't see didn't exist. Mm-hmm. So simply taking doors off rooms or doors off closets was so helpful for him, because I took away what I call a barrier to entry. I took the dresser out of his room and I lined the floor with clear bins that were labeled. He could read. So he did have words that said pajamas or, pants and things like that, because I also knew that if something took him more than 2 or 3 steps to do, he wasn't going to do it. Mm-hmm. Very long. So I did a million other things like that. I really redid my house top to bottom, as well as helped him at school. And I had a dear friend who saw what I did. She was a therapist, and she said, I have a client who has 4 boys under the age of 10, all who have ADHD. You need to go and do this at their house. Mm-hmm. So at the goodness of my heart, I went. Within 2 weeks, I had 4 phone calls from friends of that woman. Her name was Karen, saying, can you come? I saw what you did at Karen's house. I have kids with ADHD. No one has ever figured out like systems and structures and ways. And I turned to my husband, this is a true story, and I said, but I don't do this for a living. Like, I actually had a job that I worked 4 days a week. I was the head of a not-for-profit. I was the executive director at the time. And my husband, who has ADHD, and that is important, goes, well, you do now. Just like that. And I'm like, and I'm such a Virgo, I'm such a linear thinker. I can't always see the forest from the trees. I'm like, well, what do I call myself? Like, I don't even know. He goes, Order Out of Chaos. But like, I don't have a phone. Everything was like no big deal for him, because he was that out of the box creative thinker. Mm-hmm. Within a month, I quit my real job. So I started my business going house to house, door to door. 19 years later, we are an online global virtual community of over 75,000 parents, students, teachers, and related professionals who come to us for products, for programs, for workshops, for webinars, and for coaching, all to help their students be successful and learning and in life. We also have a major product division where we sell academic planners, and I write, and I think this is good too, because it's a great resource. I write the Dear ADHD Family Coach column for ADDitude Magazine. It's a weekly column. I bring A's to your reviews. I write books. I speak all over. So we have a lot going on here at Order Out of Chaos.
That's such an amazing story. It's very inspiring. And it's crazy that you had this kind of, I mean, you say your husband's the creative one, but you were creative enough to come up with all these, hacks.
Right. You know what? You're right. It's very funny when I say to people, I'm not creative. And they're like, but look at the things you thought to do. And like, you're right. I think for me, I'm much more that I would never have started a business, and if it wasn't for him. And the joke is, I was virtual 12 years ago. I was doing, webinars before webinars only because what I was finding is that even as the internet exploded, even as there was information out there, first of all, too much information can be harmful, right? People don't know what to believe or what to focus on. But what I really found was that people were craving community, they were craving connection, and they were craving conversation. And I wanted all of that when Eli was diagnosed. And so, yes, 19 years later, Order Out of Chaos looks drastically different than when we started. But what I'm the most proud of is that our mission has never changed. We are still, like, I know this can sound corny, but at our team meetings, when we all get together, the first thing we do is recite our mission, because we need to make sure that every initiative we do, every project we do, every webinar we launch, every product we create, I'm going like that because all our products are over here, does it stay true to who we are serving? And we are a very heart-centered, community-focused company that's highly profitable. And I think that's actually pretty amazing that we can do both.
That's so amazing that you were able to hire all these people and bring everyone together for such a good cause. That's truly, the result of certainly a lot of hard work and a lot of vision. So that's extremely.
I think it's also, and I know we have a lot of listeners, I think it's, the academic coaching, parent coaching ADHD world is a small one. We all know each other, right? But I think when you bring to the table that level of parenting, that you yourself are a parent of a child. I remember the very, very early stages of my company, when I was building it, I would literally be with Eli, in the late afternoon, early evening, trying to figure things out for him, parent him. Some were good moments, some were not great moments. And I'm being careful because he's 24 now and he's given me permission to say these things. And then I would go to a local high school to give a talk for parents about ADHD and executive functioning. And I would look at them and I'd go, let me tell you how I just left my son. And instantly there was this connection of, she understands, she gets it, she's one of us. I might have been through it a little bit. So I think that parenting hat is the key. That understanding of, I actually really do know what you're going through.
Yeah, definitely. And so, here on this podcast, we like to talk a lot about parenting. There's really two aspects to parenting and ADHD. There's one, parenting a child that has ADHD, which you kind of touched on already. And I'd love to kind of, get your advice on, what to do when your child just gets diagnosed with something like ADHD. But there's also the other side of, like, a lot of people have ADHD themselves, and what happens when they become parents, and becoming a parent, your whole world is impacted. But if you have ADHD, there might be like additional issues and ways to deal with them. So they're the two big kind of, points that I see in terms of like parenting and ADHD.
No, there's another whole layer. I agree with you. I know what I hear you saying is that there are many kids that have been diagnosed, and a lot of what's out there, the information we provide is, come up with systems and strategies that, listen, it's what I did. I do not have ADHD. So I was able to, keep a house that was calm, keep a house that had consistent routines, keep a house that was highly structured and forward thinking, because those types of tasks, and they are tasks, and they are all about executive functioning, and they're all easy for me because I don't struggle. So what I want everybody to know, and I know we're going to get into it, is that if you are diagnosed, and this is actually for parents, and this is for children too, but we're talking to the parents right now. If you've been diagnosed with ADHD, you automatically have what is called executive dysfunction. Okay, they go hand in hand. But what's fascinating is the reverse is not true. So you could struggle with executive functions but not necessarily been diagnosed or have ADHD. So we don't always focus on the ADHD. We really focus on the executive functions, because your executive functions tell your story. They're very granular. They're how you act. They control your organizing. They control your time management, which means they also control your planning, your prioritizing, all of that stuff. They control your focus, your effort, your ability to sustain effort, I want to say, or to initiate. They control your working memory. I always say that's you remembering to remember. It controls your impulsivity, or what I like to call self-leadership, and it controls your mood. Believe it or not, mood regulation, and I personally think mood regulation is the most important one, because when your mood has taken over, right, nothing else is going to work. None of your executive functions are going to be in play.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for you out there, even if you have ADHD or executive dysfunction, that you know what that actually even means, or what it looks like. And as that parent, I'm assuming you're struggling, like you're probably saying, I can't even get out the door on time. I can't even remember what I have to buy at the grocery store. Notice I didn't say man or woman, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. How am I supposed to make sure that my child gets out the door on time and my child is remembering? It is a level of, I just, think of like a boulder that's just sitting on top of your head, and it's crushing and it's crushing and it's crushing. So there's a lot to unpack there. Like what systems and structures have you put into place? Now I'm gonna address this as if you are with a partner. I am, because I use me as that example. Like I'm allowed to say this. My husband has ADHD, as does my son. So one of the things we did very, very, very early on is we played to our strengths. And I think that is really an important thing as a partnership, whatever that partnership looks like in your home. Is there somebody in your house that is more detail oriented, that is the organized one, that does have that forward thinking brain? Because what I did in my house is I was that structured, but what I loved about the fact that my husband, so here's where the good news comes in if you have some ADHD in you, and so does your child, is there's an empathy that you bring to the table, and an understanding that your partner who doesn't just can't. I'm very upfront about the fact that I live it, I work it, I smell it, I live in it all day long, but I do not have it.
Yeah.
Whereas my husband can really hone in on my son and talk to him about things that work for him, can identify his struggles, can work with him as he was getting older to make things more fun and more exciting. So what I want you to do as parents, if you have it, is tap into what actually is working for you.
Yeah.
So we know, so for time management, for example, what I would do is as much visual support as you can do in your home will ease the burden on you and also ease the burden on your children. The same thing with organizing. Take the closet door off so you can see inside. Get rid of the dressers so all they have to do is put stuff in a bin. See what I'm doing? Leave things out, hang things vertically, because we tend to see believe it or not, we see our vertical space before we see our, horizontal space. So what I want, get down on your child's level and organize things or put things in a way that they can access. What you want to do also is unburden your brain. So how much can you offload? Are you on your hands and knees at their eye level when organizing a space? What is their favorite color? Get everything that maybe Mike did that for my son. He loved blue. So everything was blue because he recognized that color, which made it easier for me in the morning to tell him to go get dressed. What's their favorite music? Tap into that and play that in the morning to get them up and out.
Yeah.
Make things as fun as possible, because we need that, but make it as visual as possible. I could go on and give you a million tips, but I think what we're doing here is there's two sides to this coin. It's what can I do as the parent that has it to ensure that my child's getting what they need. But I want you also to look at it as it can also be a gift that you can connect with your child and have that empathy and have these crazy out of the box strategies that work for you. Like, can I share something else?
Yes, of course.
So I grew up sitting at a desk doing homework, right? Very old school. That was the old school way. You walked into your room, you sat at a desk, it was quiet, and you closed the door.
Yes.
And that worked for me. Never dawned on me to play loud music. It never dawned on me to walk around my house. But my husband flips on the music the minute he sits down to work. And I noticed that my son gravitated to that. I noticed that my son liked to move around the house. So my husband said one day, why don't we put Eli in the bathtub? Let him do homework in the bathtub. I'm like, in the bed. And I'm an ADHD coach. I'm like, in the bed. He's like, I love that idea. Because it was fun. It was different. And he would take his pillow, he would sit in no water, and he would sit in. And so we started playing games where we would hide homework around the house. And wherever he would find it is where he would do it.
Wow.
Well, for a 13-year-old with ADHD, that's fun. Yeah. Right? Like, where's my science? It's on top of the toilet. Where's my English? It's under the kitchen table. But it was because my husband, who had the ADHD, was able to tap into things that were a little more out of the box. So I want to go back to that whole, like, if you have a partner at home, figure out what your strengths are and who's better able to connect on certain things. Offload. Like, I have to say one more thing, because I know I'm not giving you any chance to speak.
No.
But there's a lot of this. Look, we know that's called emotional labor, where in a lot of households, the women carry that burden of the planning, the prioritizing, the remembering, the gift buying, and so if you are a woman with ADHD, imagine the load that you are feeling. You need to offload. You really need to, and if it even means that you have a child that it's hard for them, then you need to offload certain particular tasks so that you are not the only one in your house responsible for them.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a very, very important point. Because women still carry most of the emotional charge.
We call it emotional labor, right? That's what we call it. It's that emotional labor. And if you have that, plus you have executive dysfunction, it is, so how can we support you first? Yeah. Right? It's the oxygen mask. What can we do for you? What are the things that you want to be offloaded? Maybe food shopping is not, maybe food shopping, you do it from your computer because there's less to remember when everything, again, is as visual for you. So it's really almost putting on your oxygen mask first and saying, what am I good at? What do I like to do? What are my strengths? And what can I offload to my partner? Because that's not where I shine.
Yeah. There's something really interesting that you said, and that I'd love to discuss a little bit more, is you said you focus on ADHD, but more particularly on like executive dysfunction, because you can have executive dysfunction without having ADHD. So it's more general and more people struggle with that. Yes. We know that, ADHD is kind of talked about more these days than it was 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, or even 10 years ago.
Oh, yes.
And it's also kind of what you mentioned at the beginning when you said that it was revolutionary what you did at the very beginning of your journey. So how, I guess there's a lot of people out there who struggle with executive dysfunction, but don't know that it is executive dysfunction, or don't even know that there's anything that it could work on. So if any parents are listening in and feel like they struggle with these things that we just mentioned, like time management and clutter and organization and all of that, but they have never been diagnosed because they have never been to a doctor. They've never
Right.
been, they didn't even think something could be up.
Right.
What do you tell these people? Do you think these people could still get help? Can you kind of
Yes.
self-diagnose your executive dysfunction?
Okay, so I want to be
You know
careful
what I
because
mean?
I'm not a doctor and I do
Yeah.
not diagnose. I want to make that really
Yeah.
clear. So what I do want to say about the ADHD and the connection and the executive dysfunction is that, when ADHD was first talked about years ago, everybody thought it was either, oh, it's a hyperactivity or it's not being able to sustain attention. That's actually not true. We all know that those of us with ADHD can actually focus. Sometimes, though, it's not on the right thing and for the right amount of time. We know many of us hyper-focus. We spend 10, 12 hours playing video games as kids, or as parents, we might be on our social media for hours on end, and all of a sudden realize 3-4 hours have gone by. ADHD is really about self-regulation. So I really want to say that first. That's really what it is. It's a self-regulation disorder. It's being able to do the right things. Think about it. I'm making it as layman as possible. It is to be able to do the right thing at the right time, for the right amount of time, with the right volume, the right energy, the right cadence, the right focus, all of those things. So I actually call them purposeful actions. That's really what they are. Now, I am sure there are plenty of parents out there, adults, let's call them adults, because not everybody's maybe, but we'll call them adults, who might be saying, wait, I have a hard time sustaining effort. I have a hard time remembering things. Like, could I have executive dysfunction? Now, I'm going to even say that the pandemic in some ways also really added a lot of this, like, I'm more distracted. I may be even more anxious. Is that lending itself to me feeling like I can't focus or can't sustain attention? You are never, ever too old to be diagnosed, ever. I get parents who come to me all the time and say, my kid is 21. Is that too late? No. And I am allowed to say this. My husband wasn't diagnosed till he was 40, right? And it changed his life being diagnosed. What you need to do if you feel that you might have executive dysfunction or ADHD is you need to go to a professional. You need to find either a psychiatrist who specializes, a psychologist or a psychiatrist who specializes in ADHD, or a neurologist. But you must go to a medical professional. They will diagnose you.
Yeah, definitely.
Coaches do not. I want to say that. And if a coach does diagnose you, then they're doing the wrong thing. We do not diagnose you. We get you after the fact.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Definitely. But since you said your husband was diagnosed at 40, I feel like some people might be listening in and feeling like, oh, this could be something that I have because I struggle with these things. And I'm a parent and, I struggle to get my kid, out the door at the right time, or all of these things you just mentioned. So I feel like it was an important point to make. That,
and it is important because we now, we talk a lot about it at Order Addict Chaos. Most of everything we do, our programs, they are geared to parents about their kids.
Yes.
And we talk about procrastination, and we talk about effort, and we talk about being overwhelmed. And the overwhelm was not something that was very big for years. I mean, talking about that. And since the pandemic, that feeling of overwhelm has really come front and centered. And in our world, we call it the TOO, child, but it could be the TOO parent, right? Everything is too much, too big, too hard, too loud, too vague. So if you are feeling like but that overwhelm and overload can come from many different places. So does not necessarily mean that you have executive dysfunction or even ADHD. You must have some of those other factors that I mentioned, like being for even it to resonate. So again, going to a professional is really your best course of action. And I don't want to go into the nitty gritty of it. There's there's questionnaires and exams and such like that will actually help with your diagnosis. But you're never, ever too old to be diagnosed and get help.
That's a great point to make. And maybe especially the time when you become a parent, so many things change in your life that it could be a good time to, realize that maybe that's what's been up, or that's what's been kind of going
Well,
on.
I think what we also don't always see is, let us say you do have ADHD and you have a partner, but you've been able to manage your day-to-day life. Like, let's say your home is organized in a way that makes sense for you. You're able to get up and get out the door on time if you work outside the home, or get up to work, whatever it is that you do, you're able to get through life. If you now have a child, what we have to remember, even if you don't have ADHD, if your life has been going like this, and your organizing systems are going like this, and your time management systems are going like this, even the amount of things you have to think about and remember, now all of a sudden you have a child. Your life has gone this way, right? But everything else has stayed the same. So it's not unusual to feel that overwhelm and feel that I'm not on top of things and feel that I can't be organized and time managed. What we need is to veer you to the left and make sure that what systems and structures and supports you have in place are continuing on that same path now that you have your child. And for some, it might also mean bringing in help. And I want to talk both sides of the coin here. On one hand, I know that some of us bringing in help is a luxury, and we can't always all afford it. I understand that. But on the other hand, some of us don't do it, not because of the expense of it, but because of the shame of it.
Yeah.
Right? I see it in my own world. There's some that say, I just simply can't afford it. So we work on that maybe as a gift, instead of getting more onesies and more, no, but think about it, more toys how about you ask your friends to collect money to bring in a professional organizer who can work with you to set up systems and strategies that meet where you are in life. I do that. That is a gift that I give. I don't give onesies and burp cloths. I give the parent someone who can come in and help them if they're struggling and need it. But on the flip side, we have parents who say, I can afford it, but I'm shamed. I feel shameful, like I should be able to do this. And I'm like, well, why? I'm going to say, I can't exercise without there being somebody next to me. I need a coach. I am a coach, but I need a coach to help. I cannot just get up in the morning and I can't. I don't feel shame. I feel like that's just something I need support with. So we need to normalize, as new parents, whether we have ADHD or not, that we do need help. And that we do need help figuring out, what does my house look like now? What does my time look like now? Right? What is my brain what should my brain be holding, and what can I offload?
Yeah.
Right? How much visual support can I put out there so I don't have to remember everything? What app can I use, like an Evernote app, where I can put everything in one place? I love Evernote. I just wanted to say that. So that's not a bad thing. And I want to normalize that help in all its forms is crucial.
And even more generally in life, I feel like getting help is never really something that comes completely free of shame, or not just in the parenting space, but in many spaces. And so if you have been diagnosed with ADHD and you are going to become a parent soon, or you already are a parent, I know we talked about getting help, but do you have any concrete steps to preparing to become a parent, or to, if you already are a parent, steps that could still apply to that, for people that are diagnosed with ADHD?
So yes, we talked about getting help. I would actually go, because this is not my first, I have plenty of parents that sit across my screen who tell me I'm a new parent, or not even a new parent. I'm struggling to keep it all together. First of all, I know this is going to sound like that I'm copping out, and I'm not. I think particularly if you are a new parent, even if you didn't, you have to let some things go.
Mhm.
Like, and as much as you can, this doesn't necessarily mean bringing help in, but as much as you can offload to someone else. If a friend can go grocery shopping for you, if another friend can do laundry, anything at that, this is I'm talking about for my new parents.
Mhm.
So even just being a new parent, you are sleep deprived, you are not physically 100% yet. So this is not the time to say, when somebody calls and says, what can I do for you? Or what can I bring you? This is not the time to say nothing. This is the time to say, hey, you're heading to the supermarket. This is what I need. Or can you stop at CVS and pick up, a script for me? Any way you can upload it. What I always tell my parents who have ADHD and are struggling is something in their life works for them, right? You birthed a baby. You are successful in many ways. So what we do in our sessions is we sit and we tap into what systems you already have in place.
Mhm.
How do you remember to charge your phone? How do you remember to buy groceries? No, but this is, and if you don't have someone in your life like me, then this is what I want you to do. I want you to take a breath and I want you to go around your house and I want you to list every single thing that is successful.
Mhm.
Maybe your clothes are organized in a way that works for you. Maybe you don't use hangers because they're too hard. Maybe you have taken the doors off your closet. Maybe you have a giant chalkboard in your kitchen where you just scribble. Or maybe you have a board with millions of sticky notes. Or
Mhm.
maybe you have an alarms that go off because you like the note section in your phone.
Mhm.
I want you to tap into what it is you are already doing and try to use, remember, I don't know you. I don't know who I'm speaking to. If I was working with you, I would be able to really cultivate this. But this is what my parents say work for them. They never think that the things that they're already doing are successful.
Yeah.
And there are things, whether it's ordering your groceries, like order your groceries online. So I'm going to give three tips.
Mhm.
As much as you can order online,
Mhm.
and not be more expensive, I want to be careful of that, I would do. My ADHD parents say that when they go to a store, it's what trips them up.
Mhm.
There's more distraction.
Yeah.
Right? There's more impulse buying.
Yeah.
There's more, I don't remember if we have that.
Yeah.
When you're home and you're making that, oh, let me just check. There's a lot more of this than of this. So as much as you can do at home, I think that not only that, it also saves time.
Yeah.
So that's number one. And I see that as a big one. The other thing is, as much as you can minimize and make your decisions smaller.
Mhm.
So not 10 restaurants to order in from, not 10 subscriptions anymore for magazines. You now have another human in the house that you have to take care of. So only having 3 magazine subscriptions, 2 places you buy your groceries, limiting your places you make decisions will definitely calm your brain and allow some brain space to now take care of this other. That's a big one. And I've seen that where I have a lot of my parents just start eliminating the excess.
Yeah.
Because that overwhelm of seeing 10 magazines come into the house or having 10 places we buy groceries from is too much.
Yeah.
Remember the overwhelm gene? We want to take that down.
Mhm.
And number 3 is we want to have as much things in our life as visual as possible. So I want you hanging analog clocks in every room of the house that you spend time in. Because to truly get time managed and know where you sit in time, you need to see time move. So having an analog in the kitchen, in the bathroom, especially the bathroom, in your children's room, in your bedroom, just being able to see time will help. We want to lighten what you have to remember. So if you see, and I've got an analog right behind me, because the more you can put things out in your space, it will act as a visual cue for you, so you don't have to remember.
That's a very good one. That's a very good point.
it's a really, but we do that all the time. Like, can you, instead of like putting stuff on a flat surface, can you hang like things on a wall where you can see things I have to do, mail I have to respond to, maybe things I have to buy? Because when things are on, you know, we always say when things are horizontal, they're hidden.
Mm-hmm.
When things are vertical, they're visual.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you all to remember that the horizontal is hidden, the vertical is visual.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as you can hang in your eye space, again, it's something that you can, you're taking the load off your brain and letting something else communicate to you. It's something you need or something you have to do. I have one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
We call it it's very pedestrian, but most of my parents say it's the best thing. They have one place in their house they set up. It might be by your back door, the garage, the front door, and they call it an in and out box. It's the one place in their house, especially when you have a child or a newborn, where things that have to go in and out of the house live. So that's where maybe the stroller lives, that's where the diaper bag lives, that's where it doesn't go all over the house. They find one place. And they use that also. Oh, I have to do a return. That's where it goes. I actually have one woman who literally goes and puts everything just in her car. Because again, the car is acting as a visual clue. She gets in the car and she sees, oh, I have to go to the cleaners. Oh, and she has a basket. Oh, I have to pick up my script.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually how she does things. Instead of having, she says, taking notes for me doesn't work. So I use things as my visual cues.
That's amazing. That's so much great advice. Thank you so much for all of that. Yeah, I feel like we covered a lot of ground.
A lot of ground.
To close up, there's one question that I like to ask everyone who's on the podcast, but I feel like you kind of already answered it, but I don't know, maybe you still have something else that's wise that you can add. But I usually ask, if you were face to face with a new parent who just had a new baby right now, what are like the top 2 or 3 tips that you would give them, to manage this crazy time? And in today's episode, we could say if it's a parent that has ADHD, what are the top 2 or 3 tips that you could give them just right off the bat without knowing them, but the top 2 or 3 things
I would tell them to do.
Definitely. I feel like we touched on it a little bit already.
I did touch on a little bit. I think the one I think I really like the idea, because I'm going to say this. I didn't have ADHD and I did this. I did keep a box outside, right outside my back door, because that's where my car was, where I kept things I had to do, because there's a lot of things you need, like there's scripts and doctors, and I would say, again, I'm going to repeat it, and I know I would make everything as visual as possible for you, particularly if you have ADHD. I would make things as visual as possible. I would offload to whomever you can the things that you truly, truly, truly do not remember. You also, I mean, I'm assuming are we talking about, if we're talking to the mom who just had the baby, you're also not 100% yourself.
Yeah.
So you really need to be offloading as much as you do. And then the last thing I'm going to say, and I know you have to have some patience. You really have to be good to yourself, because so much has changed that it's going to take some time to rewrite this, to get your sea legs again and build new routines. But really go around and tap into what is working already for you and build onto that.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much. That was great advice. I'm so grateful that you came on and that you shared all of this with us. I hope it can help a lot of people.
Oh, I hope so too. This was wonderful. I think the work you guys do is amazing. So I hope any nugget I could give will help those that are out there.
And if people want to connect with you or with your company, what is the best way to reach you? So
the name of our company is Order Out of Chaos, but our website is orderoochaos.com. And we have 2 websites. We have a product site, a regular site. We have books and products and webinars and coaching and social media, but go there And from there, you'll find everything you could need.
Well, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Leslie.
Thank you for having me. This was amazing. Bye,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you. Okay.